Good morning. Welcome to Olympia Indivisible's endorsement team review of the candidates who are up for election in 2021. My name is John Hooper, and I am the lead for the endorsement team. The other members of the team are John Cezanne, Cindy Tufford, and Dan Tufford. Today, my colleagues and I will describe what we have learned about the candidates for Port of Olympia and the Lacey City Council. We have collected information from a variety of sources, including the questionnaires that were sent to each candidate, the Zoom town halls that we conducted with each candidate, the PDC site that reports candidate donations and expenditures, the candidate's website, if it exists, or Facebook, LinkedIn, and any other source that we might uncover during our search. The information we find differs from candidate to candidate, and this is reflected in the slides of our presentation. Our goal is to describe what we have learned about each candidate in order to help you decide who you want to endorse in each race. You will be provided with a ballot via email, which you will complete and return. You will hear more about the voting process later in the program. First, I would like to go over some housekeeping items. You will be muted when you join the meeting. Please keep yourself muted until the end of the presentation. You may ask questions at the end of the presentation using the chat function. Please put the letter Q at the beginning of each question. This meeting will be recorded and posted on the OI website in 3 days. The slides will also be posted on the website. Now I would like to introduce Carla Wolfsburg, who will present some background information about the Port of Olympia and will show where each port district is located. She will be followed by Helen Wheatley, who will describe the history of the port, how it has evolved over the years, and will also list responsibilities of the port commissioners. Okay, take it away, Carla.
Thank you, John. So together with Helen Wheatley, we are the co-leads for the Port of Olympia Action Team. And since last January, our team has attended all Port Commissioner meetings and work sessions. And on occasion, we've made public those meetings. We also attend the monthly meetings of the Port Citizen Advisory Committee. And our team meets regularly to share our observations from these meetings and to discuss the issues. So this morning, I would like to offer just a brief background that you heard John talk about the port, and then Helen is going to present some history and key issues you might want to consider when voting to endorse the two port commissioner candidates. So first, I'd just like to share my screen here and let's see. Here we go. The port is what is known as a special purpose district in Washington. It's governed by 3 elected port commissioners, each representing one of the 3 port districts in Thurston County. And each commissioner serves a 4-year term. Next year, the port will have been in existence for 100 years. So this is a map of Thurston County, and it shows the 3 port districts, which are identical to the 3 Thurston County commissioner districts. Each district is roughly equal in population. While people often think of the Port of Olympia as representing only Olympia residents, in fact, the port has taxing authority for all property owners in Thurston County, collecting over $6 million annually. Essentially, we, the people of Thurston County, own the port and pay for much of its operation through our taxes. So the Port District 2 is the light green area on the right. It includes Lacey and Yelm and Rainier. And on the far left, the gold district is the Port District 3. It includes Tumwater, Bucota, and Rochester. And only the current port commissioners representing District 2 and 3 are retiring. So candidates from just those 2 districts will appear on your endorsement ballot. Okay, so the port is, let's see here. So the port is the largest property owner in Thurston County, and those red arrows point to some of the properties owned and operated by the port. They include the 66-acre marine terminal, which is a deep water port, Swantown Marine and Boat Works, the Olympia Regional Airport, which is located to the south, that arrow up on the far right, in Tumwater. And the port also owns a large warehouse in the Commerce Business Center in Lacey, so off to the left there. The port leases property that it owns on the Port Peninsula in various locations in Tumwater, such as the Newmarket Industrial Center, and it provides land for the Olympia Farmers Market and the Port Plaza, which is in front of Anthony's Restaurant. Okay, so now I'd like to introduce Helen Wheatley, and some of you may know Helen. She's a Thurston Conservation District Supervisor and active in many local groups. Helen has been engaged in port issues for years, and in 2019 was endorsed by Olympia Indivisible as a candidate for Port Commissioner in District 1. So take it away, Helen.
Thank you, Carla. All right, let's focus on some of the key elements of what port commissioners do. They're responsible to oversee the governance of the port, spend our money wisely, show strong environmental stewardship, and support all of Thurston County. Now, 2 of the 3 commissioners will be newcomers, like Carla said, but they'll have a lot on their plate right away and they'll need to get straight to work. One of them will likely have to step right into the role of commission president. New commissioners will be joining the Port Commission at a time of change when leadership is very important. Next slide, Carla, thanks. The port has evolved through some profound changes before now. Over its first 40 years, the port evolved from literally just being a port, dock, to supporting an industrial base, plus it acquired the airport and its properties in Tumwater. So here is the waterfront over half a century ago in 1963. The red arrow that you can see there points to a little group of white tanks. That's a fuel storage depot where the farmers market is today. So the world didn't stand still. Industries on the Port Peninsula eventually stopped being competitive. So over the next 30 years, with a lot of public process, the commission oversaw another major transition to include recreation. Next slide. Swantown Marina created a whole new operating unit and transformed the East Bay of Bed Inlet. But old industries left behind a legacy of pollution, including persistent toxins like dioxin, petroleum hydrocarbons, and even arsenic. And even log yard bark creates pollution if it runs off into the water. So from the 1970s, the state legislature made cleanup a part of the mission of all public ports. And the port land base grew through acquiring industrial brownfields. That was a huge change and is still evolving. Now, as a property steward, the Port of Olympia impacts communities of both people and wildlife. For instance, the shoreline is an intertidal estuary. The airport properties still provide critical habitat for rare creatures of our glacial prairies, including the little pocket gopher there and the streaked-horned lark on the right. And nowadays, the port needs to work closely with other governments on issues like habitat restoration, forest canopy, and sea level rise. But budget pressures can impact stewardship. The recent port action to support a lease option for Panettone so that it can build a huge warehouse at the site that includes this tree canopy that you see here raised a lot of concerns about environmental and community impacts. The port brushed aside a master plan for the property that it had already developed with the community of Tumwater at a cost of over $500,000. The reason the port leased the land to Panettone was a short-sighted need to bring in revenue now. The commission is making these short-term decisions based on immediate needs rather than long-term stewardship. And that's a situation which better commission oversight and planning should prevent. Next slide, thanks. Another example of spending without enough oversight and planning is this $3 million crane. It was part of a number of capital expenditures that jumped the port's bond debt from $33 to $45 million over the span of just 4 years. The crane needs to operate at least 1,000 hours a year to pay for itself, but nobody uses it. It actually operates 20 hours or less every year. Expensive missteps like this have limited the port's ability to pursue new opportunities that would benefit the whole county. So opportunity is definitely out there. There's a big push for broadband by public ports right now, especially to provide internet service to rural areas. People in Thurston County are eager to bring green energy to the port and to the community. National trends in recreational boating are towards small watercraft, and that's the kind of water access that people in Thurston County want to see. And farmers in Thurston County don't just support the economy or tourism, they promote food security and environmental conservation. So there is a way forward for those with the knowledge and skills, but it isn't easy. Just as a reminder, here again are the important elements of what the commissioners will need to do to set the port on a good course. So when you're evaluating the candidates, consider these qualities. They will have to be able to hit the deck running, engage with the public and provide good governance, spend public money wisely, assure environmental stewardship, and support the people of Thurston County. So that is that, and thank you, and I'll turn it back to you, John.
Thanks, Helen and Carla. That was very informative. This is our title slide. We can go on to the next slide if we possible. This is our list, or is the list of Olympia Indivisible's core values. When we vet the candidates, we attempt to categorize the candidate's alignment to at least some of these OI values, and we will include that information in our presentation of the candidates. Next slide. Next slide.
Yeah. Okay.
There we go. These are the offices that are up for an endorsement vote by the membership. We have commissioners running for, in District 2, Jesse Simmons and Bob Iall. And in District 3, we have 3 candidates, Melissa Denton, Amy Evans, and Joel Hansen. There are 2 positions in the Lacey City Council that are up for elections, position 4 and position 7, about which you'll hear more about later. Next slide. Basically, the mission of the Port of Olympia is to create economic opportunity and to promote economic growth in the South Puget Sound region. Next slide. The first candidate we'll discuss today is Melissa Denton. Melissa is running for Port Commissioner in District 3. She was born in Oklahoma City and raised in a suburb of Oklahoma City. And she was the first in her family to graduate from college, where she majored in history with a minor in psychology. She also studied political science and history at Oxford University on a scholarship. In her spare time, Melissa earned a black belt in karate. As a newlywed, she moved to Washington and finished her last year of law studies at the University of Puget Sound. Then she passed the bar exam and was recruited into a law firm where she began a 30-year career in family law. Next slide. Here is how we judge Melissa on her alignment with core values, and another category called essential qualities or abilities. In the core values portion, her environmental sustainability is considered to be good. She scores excellent in transparent, accountable, responsive government, equal opportunity, women's health care, and living wages, safe work conditions, and collective bargaining. As far as other essential qualities which we asked about or which we evaluate, her financial acumen, in which she's able to evaluate and critique financial statements, is excellent. Her familiarity with port functions and operations is good. Next slide. We consider her viability to be excellent. She has been endorsed by a large number of local politicians and has raised a significant amount of money to fund her campaign. Among the elected officials that have endorsed her are State Senator Hunt, Representative Dolan, Ty Mincer, and Caroline Mejia, Steve Drew, and so forth. As far as organizations, the Thurston County Democratic Women, Chapter 2 of the Retired Public Employees Council, and the National Women's Political Caucus have also endorsed her. Next slide. Amy Evans is a local resident. She attended high school in Olympia at Capitol High School. Afterwards, she went to college in Montana, where she graduated with a degree in law school. She's been on the board of directors of Big Brothers and Big Sisters and the City of Olympia's Homeless Working Group. Next slide. Prior to her brokerage career with Kidder Matthews, Amy founded a boutique dress shop in Olympia and served as the interim executive director at Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Southwest Washington. Amy refers to her campaign as a collaboration campaign. She describes this campaign as a campaign that solicits diverse points of view and life experiences to obtain the most robust, comprehensive solutions. By collaborating, we are stronger together, she says. Her website also states that all campaign contributions are limited to $250 maximum. According to the PDC site, all of the contributions to her campaign were equal to or less than $250. Amy is the most controversial of all the candidates for Port Commissioner. She was involved in the Port's proposal to develop the 200 acres of land on its Newmarket Industrial campus. Evan Parker and Amy Evans served as the lead real estate brokers on this project. As if that weren't enough to incur the wrath of environmentalists, Amy made statements at a meeting of the Port Commissioners in support of the deal. Unfortunately, she forgot to identify herself and to disclose her association with the project. Therefore, this had an impact on her core alignment with core values. Her involvement in the Panatoni Agreement Project and her subsequent public statement supporting the project without identifying herself, we decided or concluded that her commitment to the environment was not particularly robust compared to the other candidates. This also resulted in lower scores for transparency and familiarity with port operations. She does have excellent financial acumen and ability to understand financial statements, but next slide. We consider Amy's viability to be very good. She's raised approximately $28,000 to fund her campaign. This is approximately twice as much as the other candidates. She's also been endorsed by the National Women's Political Caucus of Washington. She is supported by a Tumwater City Council member, Priscilla Terry, a small business owner, Leslie Shahan, a Big Brothers and Big Sisters Vice President of Operations, and Aslan Mead, Thurston Economic Development Council member. Her website also lists a large number of supporters as opposed to endorsements, including a current port commissioner, Bill McGregor. Now I would like to introduce John Cezanne, who will discuss another District 3 candidate and 2 candidates for District 2.
Next slide. The last of the 3 candidates for District 3 is Joel Hansen. Joel Hansen is a local product. He was born and raised in the Olympia area and attended Evergreen College, where he studied environmental science. And he is very proud of being a 3rd-generation Eagle Scout. Joel is somewhat of a modern-day Renaissance man. He's accumulated experience in a number of fields. He was a financial advisor and investment counselor at First Allied Securities for several years. And then he moved on to help create and manage a vocational startup that trained healthcare professionals in holistic nutrition. And as the director of business development, grew the company to have schools in over 28 cities in the US, 2 in Canada and 2 in Australia. Next. That experience eventually led to his becoming a consultant on regenerative agriculture. He also runs his own farm here in Thurston County, and he is now currently employed by Capstone Energy, a local solar energy company. In addition to all that, he is currently serving on POCAC, the Port of Olympia Citizens Advisory Committee, and has years of service on a variety of citizens advisory groups like the City of Olympia Parks and Recreation, Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and Tumwater Farmers Market, and Thurston Conservation District, among others. Next. In considering Joel's history and experience in both the public and private sectors, he checks every box in terms of the background and experience that would be helpful to be an effective port commissioner. So how does Mr. Hansen stack up with regard to his alignment with Olympia Indivisible's core values? As you can see, in the PowerPoint, he scores excellent in all categories. His commitment to environmental sustainability is outstanding. It is notable that in contrast to his opponents, Melissa Denton and Amy Evans, he is openly opposed to the Panattoni lease agreement arrangement for development in the Tumwater New Market area. This is a quote from his questionnaire response on this issue. Quote, "I am not in favor of the contract or the process by which it was approved," unquote. In regard to climate change mitigation, Joel has a specific plan that he'd like to see the port adopt. He is committed to transparent government and equity, diversity, and inclusion. On the core values related to economic development and jobs, again, Joel has proposed several innovative approaches that the port can support in these areas, involving vocational training, support for local agriculture, and alternative uses for the port terminal. In terms of his financial acumen, again, he scores excellent in both areas. He has excellent background in financial knowledge and planning and a long history of business management. He has also a good knowledge of current port operations and activities by virtue of his service on the POCAC and his long years of involvement with local government entities. Next. Next slide, please. Like we're having a technical difficulty.
Which slide do you want, John?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Viability. This is the tough part for Joel. He came a bit late to the party, so he has some catching up to do, mainly in securing sufficient funds to effectively campaign in the primary. He is well behind Emmy Evans at this point in fundraising. On the bright side, he has put together a good campaign team headed by OI member Rory Summerson, and he has strong endorsements from Ty Metzer, EJ Zeta, Helen Wheatley, Jim Cooper, Tom Oliva, Charlie Schneider, Lisa Parsley, and Charlie Gilman, among others. And he's also endorsed by the Thurston County Democratic Women and Thurston Environmental Voters Local 443 of the Washington Federation of State Employees. In conclusion, on Joel, I would urge you to take time to listen to Joel directly in his recorded OI interview. He discusses the concept of being a good ancestor, the idea that we all try to make the world a better place for future generations. And I think that summarizes Joel's approach and how he would govern at the port as a port commissioner. Next. Okay, so we're moving on to the Port of Olympia District 2 candidates, Jesse Simmons and Bob Isle. Jesse Simmons was born and raised in Fort Worth, Texas, but after serving 8 years in the Army, he and his spouse and their 3 children now live in Lacey. During Jesse's time in the military, among other duties, he served as an environmental compliance officer at several port facilities and was certified on the storage, disposal, and transport of hazardous material. After being honorably discharged from the Army, Jesse obtained a BA in political science and a master's in political management and strategic governance. Currently, Jesse is a professional political consultant and has worked on campaigns at all levels of the political landscape, from local city council to state and federal races. Next. For the most part, I think that Jesse is in alignment with our core values. However, in terms of environmental sustainability, after considering his responses to our questionnaire and inferring from his interview responses on environmental issues, it seemed that there was less than a complete commitment to environmental sustainability. Although he stated that he would follow the recommendations of the EIS, the Environmental Impact Statement, with regard to the fate of the Fifth Avenue Dam, I gathered from his response that he is fully committed to the maintenance of the Deepwater Port and the continued log shipping operations. And he called the Panattoni situation, quote, an interesting situation. On the other side, on one side, the land in question is zoned for light industrial and waiting for development, which is already planned. But on the other side, there is a risk of negative impacts on the local ecosystems. I don't see this as an either or situation, unquote. Well, I think that our local environmental community would take issue with this answer, not be in agreement with this assessment of the Panattoni lease arrangement. So I think that Jesse gets excellent marks in the area of transparency, diversity, equity, inclusion, support for small business, and support for unions and living wages. He gets good, but not excellent on environment. And in terms of the essential qualities and abilities that the port commissioners, in these areas, I gave Jesse respectively a fair and good rating. I think that he would have a steep learning curve to become really competent in understanding the complexities of the port's finances. And he's not yet deeply familiar with all of the port's varied business operations. His answer to the question about the continuing large losses at the marine terminal was evasive and uninformed. Maybe over time he would develop knowledge and skills in financial management and port operations, but at present there would be a steep learning curve ahead. Hence the fair and good ratings in these areas. Next. This is a strong area for Jesse Simmons. He has a long head start against his opponent in campaign organization and fundraising and knowledge of political campaigning in general. He also was able to secure key endorsements long before Bob Isle entered the race. These included Sam Hunt, Carolyn Cox, Joe Downing. I may hear some groaning out there on that one. Leota Dahlhoff, Beth Dolio, Lisa Parsley, Thurston Democratic Women, and others. All this makes Jesse Simmons a tough candidate to beat. Fortunately for Bob Isle, who we will discuss next, there is no primary in this race, so he has time to catch up. Let's take a look at Bob Isle, the last of the port candidates. Bob Isle is a native in the strictest sense of the word of Thurston County. He is a member and an elder of the Nisqually tribe and a graduate of Tumwater High School. He is a business school graduate of WSU and holds an MBA. He has over 40 years of experience in the construction industry and has been the CEO of Medicine Creek Enterprise Corporation since 2014, where he oversees the day-to-day operations of all the business entities owned by the Nisqually Indian tribe. This includes the Nisqually Red Wing Casino, Nisqually Construction Service, Nisqually Markets, Nisqually Communication Services, Nisqually Post and Print, and Medicine Creek Cafe. Next. Bob gets excellent marks in all the core values categories. He has a keen appreciation for the necessity of restoring the ecosystems of Thurston County, and especially the environmental health of Puget Sound. In his interview with us, Bob discussed the centrality of salmon and how the decreasing numbers of salmon have negatively affected local tribes. He will work hard as a commissioner to do what the port has control over to restore the ecological health of Puget Sound. He recognizes, in reference to the Deepwater Port, that financially and environmentally, it may be time to, and I quote from his questionnaire response, assess the de-escalation of operations to limit losses while considering a wind-up period. He is supportive of unions and living wages. He says, quote, unions provide the best skilled labor in the world. Living wages lift communities and keep the economy growing. And quote, diverse organizations provides creativity, experiences, and perspectives from different cultural and geographical backgrounds that are proven to increase problem solving and profitability. And I would say that in terms of support for small business and economic development, that Bob's business resume would indicate that he has a strong background and experience in this area. In the essential qualities and abilities that we judge to be essential in order to be an effective port commissioner, Bob also gets excellent marks. As a CEO of a successful organization with over 800 employees, I believe he has the financial acumen and managerial knowledge that would serve him in good stead as a port commissioner. And in recent years, he has had occasion to deal with the port on some issues and has some knowledge of port operations. Next. And in terms of viability, Bob has a lot of catching up that needs to be done to increase his viability as a candidate. Fortunately, he does not have to compete in a primary, and therefore there is time to get a viable campaign together. But he is currently pretty far behind in fundraising and in campaign organization. We don't have any reports yet on how much cash he's raised. And I just recently learned that he was endorsed by Carolina Mejia. So we know he has at least that endorsement. Basically, that's it for the port. So I'd like to ask Dan and Cindy Tuffer to take over and tell us about the Lacey election.
Thank you, John. That completes the presentation for the port candidates. As John said in my introduction, my name is Cindy Tufford. I represent the OI endorsement team as well as being on the leadership team for the Democrats of Jubilee of Lacey. I will now present the candidates for Lacey City Council position 4. That will be followed by Dan Tufford presenting the remaining candidates for Lacey City Council. But before these presentations, I want to take a moment to explain why Olympia Indivisible has chosen to endorse candidates at the municipal level and why only Lacey was chosen. The 3 neighboring cities of Olympia, Lacey, and Tumwater are stakeholders in many Thurston County issues and projects such as climate mitigation, environment, homeless citizens, transportation, and affordable housing, to name a few. For Olympia Indivisible's goals and values to be implemented and sustained, the 3 cities need to work together. This is especially true in the case of the pending implementation of the important Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan, as well as how the millions of dollars of federal COVID relief money will be spent. There are 7 seats on the Lacey City Council. 4 of these are currently held by the more left-leaning members, and all 4 will be on the ballot in November. Fortunately, only 2 of these positions are being contested. Of the remaining 2 contested positions, the loss of even one to the more conservative candidate will likely put in jeopardy countywide progress in support of OI goals and values. I'd like to thank the OI Steering Committee for their decision to support the endorsement of the Lacey candidates. This is an important election, and I urge all members of OI, no matter if you are not a resident of Lacey, to support the endorsed candidates. Next slide. The first of the 2 candidates for position 4 for Lacey City Council is Robin Vasquez. She is a first-time candidate and is running for a position that is being vacated by the retiring Deputy Mayor Cynthia Pratt. Robin is a native of the PNW, born and raised in Bremerton, now living in Lacey. She has a bachelor's degree in political science and Spanish from Western Washington University and a master's in public administration from Evergreen. She has been trained in mediation through the Thurston County Dispute Resolution Center. She has prior work experience in collective bargaining on behalf of the state of Washington and as a union negotiator for the Washington Federation of State Employees. Next slide. She currently works for the state as a workforce strategy section chief, and she is a volunteer on the Planning Commission for the City of Lacey. Robin is also on the South Sound Roller Derby team, and from her website, she feels that this is the experience that prepares her for politics more than any other. Next slide. Robin has excellent alignment to OI core values in all but one category. Robin's rating on broadband as good was not that she did not support access, but because she admitted it was an area she needed to do more research. Robin's core value ratings were based on interviews conducted by the OI endorsement team, as well as with the Democrats of Jubilee, and also with her responses to the endorsement questionnaire. Next slide. Robin's viability, especially considering she is a first-time candidate, is impressive. She is well-funded, being second in fundraising in the Lacey races to incumbent Carolyn Cox. And she has been endorsed by our local state senators, state representatives, as well as Thurston County commissioners and many Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater Council members. In addition, with her union negotiating background, she has been endorsed by several union organizations that include Washington Federation of State Employees and Lacey Professional Firefighters. I do think that we have an excellent young first-time candidate with much future potential. Next slide. The opposing candidate to Robin is Emma McSherry. A questionnaire was sent to Emma, which she acknowledged but chose not to answer. From her candidate Facebook page and website, Emma is a hair salon, small business owner with no documented community, volunteer, or elected experience. She has been endorsed by the most right-leaning Lacey Council members, Lenny Greenstein and Ed Kunkel. I will now turn it over to Dan Tufford, who will present the remaining Lacey candidates.
Thank you, Cindy. As already noted, the only other contested position for the Lacey City Council is for position 7. The seat is currently held by Carolyn Cox. Carolyn was born and raised in Florida, but has lived in Thurston County since 1992 and Lacey since 2001. Her parents were community leaders, which had a strong influence on her approach to her own life. In fact, her resume is long on community service, including Thurston County Regional Housing Council, Lacey Planning Commission, Thurston Climate Mitigation Steering Committee, and other volunteer positions in her personal life, to name only a few. Based on Carolyn's questionnaire responses, her Zoom interview, and her past record, we believe she has excellent alignment with OI's core values, with the exception of broadband access. During the recent renegotiation of the Comcast contract, it is not clear how much emphasis was placed on expanded broadband access. However, in a follow-up email about this with Carolyn, she said, and I quote, "They did gain ground on expanding broadband access, particularly in rural areas. At this time, there was great concern about distance learning inequities for students, still is, and inequities in general," unquote. Carolyn helped form the new Lacey Commission on Equity and represented Lacey on the Thurston Climate Mitigation Steering Committee, two examples of her work on council that will help advance OI's core values. If there is a benefit to incumbency at the city council level, Carolyn has it. She is respected by her colleagues, especially Mayor Andy Ryder, retiring Deputy Mayor Cynthia Pratt, and Council Member Michael Stedman. She is endorsed by all the major liberal office holders in Thurston County, including Thurston County commissioners and several members of both the Olympia and Tumwater city councils. She also is endorsed by Lacey Professional Firefighters, Local 443 of the Washington Federation of State Employees, Local 129 of the South Puget Sound Carpenters, the National Women's Political Caucus of Washington, and several other labor, political, and community organizations. Despite all this, she is likely in a challenging re-election campaign. Felix Piguero, her opponent, has quite a lot of name recognition, both for his professional work as a financial advisor for Edward Jones and his community involvement on Rotary and the Chamber of Commerce. He also is a combat veteran. He did not respond to our questionnaire, and his campaign website has little more than a short biographical sketch. This could be just that he has not ramped up his campaign, although signs began appearing around town several weeks ago. Although they do not have opponents, we want you to be aware of the other two incumbents who are up for re-election and will be on the ballot, along with a write-in option. Mayor Andy Ryder did not respond to the initial emailing of our questionnaire, but he was the first to respond to me about it. He thanked me and was very appreciative that Olympia Indivisible is looking at the Lacey City Council races. He is concerned, as are we, that the loss of even one seat could have a very negative effect on Lacey itself and on its ability to be a full partner in the important work that must move forward in Thurston County. Olympia Indivisible members will recall that we endorsed Michael Stedman last year in his race for Thurston County Commissioner, a race he lost at the very end of the vote count by a slim margin. We appreciate that he wants to keep up the good fight on Lacey City Council. And that is it for the candidate information.
Now, this is John Hooper again. I'd like to turn the meeting over to Andrew Ryan, who will describe the Olympia Indivisible endorsement voting process.
Great. Thank you, John, and welcome everyone. Thanks for sticking around here. My name's Andrew Ryan. I'm a member of the Olympia Indivisible Steering Committee. I'm also the education team lead here. And like John said, I'm going to briefly discuss when you get your OPA vote ballot, what you need to do so we can get this endorsement election running. So to start off really quickly, you'll be getting your ballot today around 2 p.m. We'll set those out. If you don't see the ballot in your inbox, this will be an email coming from OPA vote. Make sure you check your spam folder, or like if you have Gmail, there's additional folders they automatically make for you. OPA vote often goes to the updates folder or something like that. So make sure you look around. If you can't find that email, you can get in touch with me. We have a votes email that we'll put up in the chat here in a second. It's ioivotes@gmail.com, and that email will come to me and I can help you out. Let's talk a little bit about OPA vote. So OPA vote's an election software. We've been using this for a number of elections now for endorsements. It's the same one that we used last year and in previous elections. You'll be getting the ballot from OPA vote, like I mentioned. When you get the email, and you click to open the ballot, you'll get a list of all the positions with their candidates' names to one side, and the list of preferred candidates on the right. When you see that email, open the ballot and begin your selections. Sorry, I've got a script and a thing I'm trying to go back and forth on. You'll have 6 days to vote. It's going to begin, like I said, today. It'll close next Friday, which is July 2nd at 5 p.m. So we're closing it a day earlier than in previous years because of the July 4th holiday. But at 5 p.m. July 2nd, the election will close. Carla and I, who've been running the OPA vote section of this, will take a look and send the winners to the endorsements team and stuff to get word out on who won. So, like I said, you'll get your ballot email. There'll be a button there. You click the link. It'll open up in your browser, your web browser, and then you'll be able to vote for the candidates of your choice. For endorsements, the candidate with the most votes will get the endorsement. We'll only be endorsing one candidate per race, and the 2 Lacey City Councils that are uncontested, if you vote for them, that'll help go towards an endorsement. They need the votes to be endorsed. Yep. There's one race that's kind of different than your standard pick one winner. That's the Port Commissioner in District 3, where there's the 3 candidates. For this one, we're going to be using ranked choice voting. This is exactly the same as what we used last year for most of our races. It's just a ranking of candidates in the order of your preference. So you'll actually select as many candidates as you want, in order 1 being your top, down to 3 being your least favored candidate. And we're using a method that goes for 50% plus 1 vote. So if we get above a 50% endorsed vote for 1 candidate, that will be the endorsed candidate. So ranked choice voting, it's very easy. You'll see a box on one side that will be blank and a box on the other that will have names. You find the name you want, that's your top pick. You click the add button and that name will appear in your ballot box list. You then find the candidate that's your second most preferred, click the same button for that one, it'll move it in, and the same with the third. You do not need to vote for all 3. You can, if you want to, only vote for 1 or 2. By voting for all 3, you're giving a chance for your second or third candidate to also get your vote. If you put those names in and you made a mistake, you can drag them up and down and rearrange what order they're in at any time. It's just important to remember that once you press the vote button at the very bottom, your vote will be locked in. So once the ballots close next Friday, we're going to notify the candidates as soon as possible. Once they've been notified, All OI members will receive an email that will have the results from the election. And then we're going to put out a notification to the media that we endorsed, followed by updates on our website and our Facebook page. So just like we've done in previous years. Oops. And yeah, one more, you've got 6 days. Try to vote as early as possible. So we'll be sending reminders throughout the week to anyone who hasn't voted. And we're going to try to get as many of our 600 plus members to vote. One more time, if you don't see your OPA ballot in your inbox or your spam folder, here's the email address. It's oivotes@gmail.com, and I'll be able to help you out. And with that, excuse me, my script's out of the way. That's it for me. Back to you, John.
Okay, thanks very much, Andrew. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for spending part of your Saturday with us to discuss these important issues. We greatly appreciate your participation. Please remember that you can visit Olympia Indivisible's website where we have a lot of information posted, including responses to Olympia Indivisible's candidate questionnaires, videos of the town halls where you can really get to know the personalities and responsiveness of the individual candidates, photographs and identifying the candidates and which race they're involved in, and lastly, links to each candidate's website and Facebook pages so that you can further understand who they are and which issues most concern them. Now, one last time, I would like to turn the program back to John Cezanne, who will tell us if he has received any questions on the chat function.
Hi. There's a few comments, but in terms of questions, there's a correction to one of the slides. It's Charlie Gilman, not Clark Gilman. That's an error, sorry. And then I have a question from Maddie Cope, which I really don't know the answer to. According to the PDC, Joel Hansen, candidate for Port Commissioner, is registered to run for City Council race alongside the Port Commissioner race. Well, he's since discontinued his race for City Council. It still raises questions for why he was considering such wildly different positions. Do you have any comments for how voters should see this dual registration? I really don't have an answer for that. I think perhaps maybe Helen Wheatley might.
Yeah, I mean, I do know when I was running for Port 2 years ago, he was very interested in the position at that time and thinking about it. And we had a couple of conversations about that actually. And he was a good supporter of my campaign. And I'm not sure that they're as far apart as one might imagine, like that discussion we had about Panettone. There's a lot of ways that the port intersects with the city of Tumwater. So it's actually, the port has a lot of influence over the economic development of Tumwater. So you could make a case for supporting Tumwater by running for the port. But I suspect that for Joel, since he does have a young family, he probably, in all honesty, may have been thinking about the Tumwater race as not being quite as much of a tremendous commitment as the port. So I'm glad he decided to step up.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions. I do have a comment from Kiyoki to everyone. I think I should read just to give his point of view on this. And it says, Amy Evans' PDC report shows a typical establishment tactic of going under the $250 limit. For instance, Kidder Matthews donated to Max. I picked a random name under Kidder Matthews and checked it against the employee list. First person was Evan Parker. he gave the max donation and is the VP of Kidder Matthews. So Kidder Matthews has given at least double the max. To clarify, even Evan Parker is on her donation list. And when I cross-check it with the employee roster, found out he is their VP. Kaufman Commercial Real Estate is another example. So I don't know if I think that pretty self-explanatory. And we have a comment from Jim Lazar. Joel has a great allegiance to Zeta. Prior to her decision to not seek re-election, Joel started a campaign for city council. I think it was for his only donor. Once Zeta decided to not run, he stepped up to support. Well, yeah, took him a while, but he finally came around. And it says, I have a question from Maddie Cope. Keoki, aren't personal donations separate from corporate donations, or were they made on behalf of the company? I don't know. Keoki can unmute and answer that, I believe. Is that possible? Or if he's still with us?
Yeah, thank you. Yes. However, it's this, as I mentioned, this is a very typical technique of getting 6, 7, 8 employees to give the maximum to a campaign. And yeah, technically they're separate, but the vice president of Kidder Matthews, really? We see this a lot. Kaufman Commercial Real Estate is another example. The owner of Kaufman Commercial Real Estate also gave the max. That's double. That's double over the maximum. So, also I wanted to point out in Jesse Simmons's questionnaire, he listed the Port of Lisbon as a great example, a model that we should follow in what we do with our port. I worked for an importer that specialized in wine and port from Portugal. The Port of Lisbon is the 6th worst polluting port in all of Europe. Thank you.
Okay, so I think that is it for Q&A. Unless anybody else, we'll give you a minute. Well, I'm going to turn it back to John Hooper for any closing comments.
Thanks very much, John. All I want to say is that I really appreciate everybody coming out on this, spend part of their Saturday with us, and just remember that you can get this additional information from the Olympia Indivisible website, including this presentation and the slides and the videos of the candidate Zoom town halls and so forth. So, and if you have any questions, you can get in touch with us through the OI website. There's a link to the endorsement team's email. So anyway, that's all I have. And thanks very, very much for each of you people who participated in this presentation. John, Suzanne, and I have been doing this for 4 years now. So, and we enjoyed it each time. Thank you.